You're here because you need to get smart, fast on complex topics, right?
Yeah.
Without, drowning in all the details.
Absolutely. Information overload is real.
So today, we're kind of throwing you a lifeline. We're diving deep into project structure, tackling those sometimes murky waters of project management.
Mhm.
Think of this as your shortcut, yeah? Your way to really grasp how to organize pretty much any project, start to finish.
And that's so crucial. I mean, so many ambitious projects stumble, not because people aren't working hard, but because the underlying structure is just shaky or misunderstood.
Yeah, or just not there.
Right. It's like trying to build something really complex, a big machine maybe, but you don't have a clear blueprint. It's just asking for trouble.
Totally. Okay, picture this. You're planning like an epic cross-country road trip.
Okay, I'm with
You
you.
wouldn't just jump in the car, fire up the engine, and just hope for the best, would you?
Definitely not. Unless you like chaos.
Right. You'd, map out your route, figure out the key stops, what gear you need to pack, maybe give the car a quick check.
Sure, the basics.
So projects are pretty much the same. They absolutely demand a clear roadmap to guide them.
And that roadmap, in project terms, it's built on some key things. We're talking about the project life cycle, the different phases within that cycle, those critical checkpoints we call gates.
Gates, right.
And then all the processes and the knowledge areas that sort of define how you actually do the work.
Okay. So our mission today is really to unpack these core bits, the project life cycles, phases, gates, processes, process groups, and knowledge areas.
All the key ingredients.
Exactly. So you can see them as like the fundamental blueprint for navigating any project successfully.
Yeah.
And understanding this stuff, it's not just academic theory, it's genuinely the key to staying on track and actually hitting your project goals.
Couldn't agree more. So where should we start? Life cycles.
Let's do it. Project life cycles. So in simple terms, this is basically the big picture sequence, the series of phases a project goes through from the very start, initiation, all the way to completion.
The whole journey.
The whole journey laid out. Every single project has one, even if it's not explicitly named.
It provides that high-level view, doesn't it? The strategic path the project's going to follow. It's the sort of container for all the detailed work that happens inside.
Right. And then within that overall journey, there's often a more specific focus on how you actually create the product, the service, whatever the result is.
Okay, so that's where development life cycles come in.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The project life cycle is deciding, okay, we're going to build a house.
Got it. Big decision.
The development life cycle is the specific method you'll use to actually construct it. And here's where it gets interesting, because there isn't just one way to build.
Right. Different strokes for different folks or different projects.
Precisely. So imagine you're building that house, and you have this super detailed, complete blueprint right from the get-go.
Everything specified.
Mhm.
Every nail, every wire.
Yeah, you know exactly what every room looks like, all the measurements, materials. Now changes, they're possible, but usually pretty costly, and going back to the drawing board, rethinking things.
Okay.
That's a predictive approach. You often hear it called waterfall. It works really well when you know exactly what you need up front, and those needs aren't likely to change much.
Yeah, the classic approach. But the risk there, I find, is you can get stuck in analysis paralysis trying to define everything perfectly up front.
True.
Or, the world changes halfway through and your perfect plan is suddenly not so perfect. Adapting can be really painful. It assumes a level of certainty that, frankly, many projects just don't have.
Good point. Okay, so then there's iterative. With this, you still know the end goal, the finished house, but you build it in cycles and iterations.
Okay, like stages?
Kind of. You might start with the foundation, then maybe the frame and walls, then the roof. And crucially, you learn and refine your plans, maybe even your cost estimates, as you complete each cycle.
So you build a bit, learn a bit, adjust a bit.
Exactly. The overall scope, what the house is usually fairly set early on, but the time and cost might flex based on what you discover.
That sounds more flexible. Allows for feedback early on, right? And you can incorporate learnings. The challenge there, though, might be keeping the scope from creeping if you're not careful with those iterations.
Yeah, scope creep is always lurking. Okay, now think about incremental. This is slightly different. It's about delivering usable chunks of the house, piece by piece.
Usable chunks? Like what?
Maybe you build a fully functional guest suite first. Someone could actually use it. Then you add the main living area, then the bedrooms. Each increment adds real, usable functionality.
Oh, I see. So the users or clients get value sooner. They don't have to wait for the whole thing.
Exactly.
The tricky part there must be making sure all those increments fit together seamlessly in the end. Integration could be key.
Definitely. Okay, next up. adaptive. This is what people often mean when they say agile or change-driven.
Ah, the agile world.
Right. Imagine building with Legos. You have a general idea, maybe? But the detailed design evolves in short bursts, short cycles, often called sprints.
Okay.
You build a bit, show it, get feedback, adapt your plan based on that feedback, and then build the next bit. It's fantastic for projects where requirements are fuzzy at the start or you expect them to change a lot.
The big advantage there is the rapid feedback and the flexibility, obviously. But I've seen it go wrong too. Without really strong guidance, like good product ownership and a clear overall vision, it can just become,
Yeah.
well, maybe feature bloat, just adding stuff without a coherent direction. It needs discipline.
Good point. It's not just making it up as you go along.
Yeah,
And finally, there's hybrid, which is basically, mixing and matching,
picking the best bits.
hopefully. For our house example, maybe you use a predictive approach for the foundation that needs to be solid, well-defined, right?
Makes sense.
But then maybe you use an adaptive approach for the interior design, where the client's tastes might evolve as they see things taking shape.
That sounds practical. Using the right tool for the right job, essentially. Hybrid lets you tailor things.
Yeah.
But you really need to understand why you're mixing them and how to manage that mix.
Absolutely. So the big takeaway here is choosing the right development life cycle or the right blend is super important. There's no single best answer. It depends on the project.
Context is everything.
Right. And just to nail this down, the project life cycle, the whole house building project, is different from the product life cycle.
Ah, good distinction.
The product life cycle is what happens after the project's done. People live in the house, maybe it gets renovated years later, eventually it might get torn down. The project creates the product, but the product lives on.
That's a really fundamental point. The project is temporary. It has a start and an end. It's about creating the thing. The product life cycle is about that thing's ongoing existence, its evolution. Very different focus.
Okay, cool. So we've got the big picture project life cycles and different ways to do the core work development life cycles. Now let's zoom in a bit on project phases.
Okay, breaking it down.
Yeah. A phase is basically a collection of related project activities. They usually group together logically and end with some kind of major deliverable or a significant milestone being reached.
Right, they break the whole life cycle into more manageable chunks. It helps with organization control.
Exactly. Back to our road trip analogy.
Okay.
Phases could be something like phase 1, planning the route and budget.
Sure.
Phase 2, driving the first leg to, say, the midpoint city. Phase 3, maybe a planned stop for sightseeing there. Phase 4, the final drive home.
Logical stages within the bigger trip. Makes sense.
And these phases, they have certain characteristics. They'll usually have a name, like planning phase or testing phase,
Yeah.
a number showing where it fits in the sequence, a duration, how long you expect it to take.
2 weeks, 3 months, whatever.
Right. They need specific resources, who you need, what tools, materials for that phase.
Designers, developers,
Yeah.
equipment.
And crucially, they have entrance criteria. What has to be true or what needs to be done before you can even start the phase.
Like the budget needs to be approved, maybe, or the requirements signed off.
Exactly. And similarly, they have exit criteria. What specific things must be achieved or delivered to say, okay, this phase is officially done?
Like a finished prototype or completed test results.
Precisely. These defined entry and exit points are really important.
Yeah, they give you those tangible checkpoints, right?
Yeah.
Make sure each phase has a clear purpose and you know when it's actually finished with measurable outcomes.
And you'll hear different names for phases depending on the project or industry, like concept, feasibility study, design, build, test, deploy, closeout, lots of variations.
Sure.
So why bother breaking projects into phases anyway?
Great.
Well, like you said, it gives you much better control.
Definitely.
It creates these natural points for management or the team to stop, review progress, make important decisions.
Catch problems early.
Yeah, and maybe correct the course before you've sunk too much time and money going down the wrong path.
So better oversight, better risk management, and you build in points where you can adapt if things change. It happens at logical breaks.
Exactly. Now, building right on that idea of checkpoints,
Mhm.
at the end of each phase, you often have a more formal review. This is what we call a phase gate.
Okay, phase gates. Also heard them called stage gates. Kill points.
Yeah, kill point sounds a bit dramatic, but it gets the point across. Phase reviews is another one.
They're basically crucial quality checks and decision points,
Yeah.
right? Making sure the project's still on track, still makes sense.
Totally. Think of it like that toll booth on our road trip again.
Right. Pay the toll, show your papers.
Something like that. Before you move to the next leg, you stop. Your progress gets checked. How's the project doing compared to the plan?
Are we on budget for that phase?
Uh,
On schedule?
Did we actually deliver what we said we would for this phase? And really importantly, does the original reason for doing this project, the business case, still hold up?
So you might even revisit the project charter or the initial justification.
Absolutely. Things change, priorities shift.
That makes sense. That rigor, that review, it stops you from just blindly carrying on with a project that maybe isn't viable anymore or isn't delivering the value expected. Saves resources in the long run.
Exactly. And based on that review at the gate, there are a few possible outcomes, a few decisions. Ideally, you get a go.
Green light. Proceed to the next phase.
Right. Or sometimes it's go with modifications, like, okay, you can continue, but you need to fix these issues first or make these specific changes.
Okay, conditional pass.
Then there's a tough one, no go or end. The project stops. Maybe it's way off track, maybe the business need disappeared.
Kill point.
Yeah. Or you might get a stay decision, meaning, hang on, you need to stay in this current phase and fix some things before we can even think about moving forward.
More work needed in the current phase.
And occasionally, a repeat decision. Maybe some part of the phase just wasn't done well enough and you need to redo it.
Ouch. Rework.
Yeah. But these decisions really highlight why phase gates are so important. They force accountability and stop people throwing good money after bad on projects that aren't working out.
Keeps things aligned, make sure value is still being delivered or potentially delivered. Critical decision point.
Okay. So we've got the journey, the stages, the checkpoints. Now, how do we actually manage the project through all this?
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. That brings us to project management processes. Think of a process as like a recipe, a set sequence of actions to get a specific result.
Okay, a recipe. I like that.
It takes inputs your ingredients, like project requirements or the resources you have available. It uses various tools and techniques, your cooking methods and utensils, like scheduling software or risk analysis techniques.
Got it.
And it produces outputs, the finished dish, like a project schedule, a risk report, or maybe the actual deliverable itself.
Inputs plus tools and techniques, outputs. That's the basic structure of a process in project management terms. These are the specific activities the team does to manage the work.
Right. And a key thing is these processes aren't islands. They're interconnected. Often, the output of one process becomes an input for another one.
Ah, like a chain reaction?
Kind of. For example, think about figuring out what the project needs to achieve. The detailed list you create the output of, say, collect requirements.
Okay.
That list becomes a crucial input for the defined scope process, where you figure out exactly what work is in the project and what's out.
I see. So the output of requirements gathering feeds directly into defining the boundaries of the project, creates a logical flow. Information moves from one step to the next.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, not all these processes happen all the time. They kind of fall into different patterns of use.
Okay.
Some are used once or only at specific predefined points, like develop project charter. That usually happens right at the very beginning to officially kick things off and authorize the project.
Makes sense. Just once at the start.
And close project or phase happens right at the end to formally wrap things up.
Bookends.
Exactly. Then you have processes that are used periodically, sort of as needed. Like acquire resources. You do that whenever you need more people or equipment.
Or conduct procurements when you need to buy something, or hire a contractor.
Right. You do it when the need arises during the project. And finally, some processes are pretty much used continuously throughout the project lifecycle.
Like what?
Well, monitor and control project work is a big one. You're always tracking progress, checking performance, seeing if adjustments are needed.
Constantly keeping an eye on things.
Yeah. And something like define activities, breaking down the work, might be almost continuous in those adaptive or agile environments we talked about, where you're planning in short cycles.
Right, because the detailed plan emerges over time. So understanding when and how often these processes are used is key to managing efficiently, avoiding doing stuff you don't need to yet.
Definitely avoids unnecessary paperwork or meetings. Okay, so there are lots of these individual processes, these recipes. To make sense of them all, we group them logically based on what they're trying to do.
Grouping them by purpose.
Exactly. And these groupings are called the project management process groups. Now, here's a super important point. Process groups are not the same as project phases.
Ah, that's a common point of confusion. Worth emphasizing.
Totally. Remember, phases are chronological, the stages over time. Process groups are categories of activity. They describe the type of management work being done, and that work can happen in any phase.
Got it. Phases equal time. Process groups, function or type of work. That's fundamental.
Right. Think of the process groups like 5 big folders or maybe drawers in a filing cabinet for organizing all those project management recipes.
Okay, 5 folders. What are they?
First is initiating. These processes are all about defining a new project or a new phase of an existing project and getting the authorization to start, getting the green light, basically.
Okay, initiating, starting up authorizing.
Next is planning. This is where you establish the scope, refine the objectives, and define the course of action needed to reach those objectives. It's about creating that detailed roadmap, the project plan.
Planning, figuring out the what and how.
Then comes executing. These are the processes used to actually perform the work defined in the project plan. This is where the team builds the deliverable, carries out the tasks.
Executing, doing the work.
Following that, we have monitoring and controlling. These processes track, review, and regulate the project's progress and performance. It's about checking against the plan, identifying variances, and taking corrective action if needed.
Monitoring and controlling, checking progress, and making adjustments, like checking the map and fuel gauge on our road trip.
Perfect analogy. And finally, there's closing. These processes finalize all activities across all the other process groups to formally complete the project, a phase, or maybe a specific contract.
Closing, wrapping up, finishing.
So those are the 5: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing.
And crucially, although we list them like that, one after the other,
Yeah.
in a real project, activities from several of these groups are often happening at the same time, even within a single phase.
Oh, right. Good point.
For instance, while you're heavily into executing the work,
Doing the building.
you are absolutely also doing monitoring and controlling activities simultaneously. You're checking quality, tracking progress, managing changes as they come up. They overlap constantly.
Okay, so they're not strictly sequential steps, even though the names might sound a bit like that. They're groups of related activities that interact throughout the project.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got process groups that categorize management activities by their purpose or timing. Now, there's one more important way we categorize all this project management work, by the subject matter or the specific area of expertise required.
Okay. This sounds like the knowledge areas.
Exactly, project management knowledge areas.
These represent the different disciplines, right? The specific skill sets a project manager and the team need to bring to the table.
Yeah. Think about our road trip again. What different kinds of knowledge or skills would you need?
Well, navigation, obviously. Knowing how to read a map or use a GPS.
Right. What else?
Budgeting. Managing money for gas, food, hotels.
Good one.
Maybe some basic vehicle maintenance knowledge. What to do if you get a flat tire.
Sure. And maybe communication skills. Coordinating with whoever else is in the car or people you're meeting.
Yeah, definitely. So different areas of expertise needed for the trip.
Exactly. And project management has its own set of these. There are 10 recognized knowledge areas. We won't go super deep into each one today, but it's good to know what they are.
Okay, let's list them out.
First, integration management. This is kind of the master coordinator. It's about pulling all the other pieces together, making sure everything works in harmony, like the conductor of an orchestra.
The glue that holds it all together. Okay.
And the scope management. This is all about making sure the project includes all the work required and only the work required to complete it successfully.
Yeah.
Defining and controlling the boundaries.
What's in, what's out.
Crucial. Schedule management. Pretty self-explanatory. Developing, managing, and controlling the project timeline.
Keeping things on track, time-wise.
Cost management. Planning, estimating, budgeting, and controlling costs so the project stays within its approved budget.
Managing the money.
Quality management. Ensuring the project and its deliverables satisfy the needs for which it was undertaken. Meeting the requirements and standards.
Making sure it's fit for purpose.
Resource management. This covers organizing, managing, and leading the project team, but also acquiring and managing physical resources like equipment and materials.
People and stuff.
Communications management. This involves planning, managing, and monitoring the flow of project information to ensure everyone who needs to know knows the right thing at the right time.
Keeping everyone in the loop, effectively.
Risk management. Identifying, analyzing, planning responses to, and controlling potential threats or opportunities that could impact the project.
Dealing with uncertainty, good and bad.
Procurement management. Managing the processes needed to purchase or acquire products, services, or results from outside the project team. Deals with contracts and vendors.
Buying things or hiring external help.
And finally, stakeholder management. identifying all the people, groups, or organizations that could impact or be impacted by the project, and managing their expectations and engagement.
Keeping all the interested parties happy, or at least informed and managed. Phew, that's 10.
It is. Integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resource, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder.
And just to tie it back, each of these knowledge areas contains specific processes.
Right.
And those processes will naturally fall into one or more of the 5 process groups we talked about earlier.
Okay, so it's like a matrix.
Exactly. You could imagine a grid. For example, within the risk management knowledge area, you'll have processes like plan risk management, which happens during the planning process group.
Okay.
Then identify risks, which might start in initiating or planning, perform qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, definitely planning, implement risk responses happens during executing, and monitor risks is part of monitoring and controlling.
Got it. So the knowledge area tells you what subject you're dealing with, like risk. And the process group tells you what kind of activity you're doing for that subject at that time, like planning it or monitoring it.
You've got it. That's how they all fit together.
Okay, wow. That was a lot, but hopefully that clears things up. So just to quickly recap our deep dive into project structure.
Let's do it.
We started way up high with project life cycles, that overall journey and the different development life cycles within it, like predictive, iterative, adaptive, etc., dictating how the work gets built.
The what journey and the how to build methods.
We zoomed into project phases, those logical stages, and the critical phase gates, those decision points between phases.
Stages and toll booths.
Then we looked at the actual management work,
Hmm.
the project management processes, those specific recipes,
Inputs, tools and techniques, outputs.
which we organized into 5 process groups based on their purpose: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing.
The 5 main types of management activity.
And finally, we looked at the 10 project management knowledge areas like scope, schedule, cost, risk, representing the different areas of expertise needed to manage everything effectively.
The subject matter disciplines.
Phew.
And it might sound complex, but all this structure, it really serves a vital purpose. It's not just bureaucracy for its own sake.
Absolutely not. It brings, well, much needed order to what can be really complex, messy undertakings. It gives teams a common framework, a common language to talk about the work. It makes planning way more effective. It sets up those essential control points we talked about.
Clarifies roles, responsibilities.
Yeah. And ultimately, all of this significantly boosts the chances of the project actually succeeding, delivering what it set out to do.
It's the scaffolding, really. The scaffolding that successful projects are built on. It lets teams navigate that complexity and deliver the results they need to.
So understanding this foundational structure, it's essential for anyone involved in projects, whether you're leading them or just part of the team.
Absolutely fundamental.
So here's something for you, the listener, to think about as you go about your week. Consider the projects you're involved in right now, or maybe ones from the past. Can you kind of see these structural elements, phases, maybe informal gates, different types of processes? Can you see them at play even if nobody used these exact labels?
Yeah, sometimes they exist even if they aren't named.
Right. And think about how maybe applying these ideas more consciously, more formally, could have improved things or could improve your current projects.
And maybe for any new projects coming up,
Yeah.
think about which development lifecycle might actually be the best fit. Is it straightforward enough for predictive? Is there a lot of uncertainty pointing towards adaptive? Or maybe a hybrid approach makes the most sense.
Great final thought. It really is about consciously choosing and using these structural tools to drive better results. It's not just theory, it's practical application.